Welcome back once again, and in this video I'm actually going to make a James Bond movie tier list. And I know this might seem like a shock since this is mainly a gaming channel, but recently I've been watching the James Bond movies. First I watched it with my parents, and then I watched it with right now I'm watching it with a friend. I've seen most of these movies before that though, but it's nice seeing them again to kind of refresh my memory and my opinions on them. But one important thing to note, and I think this applies to every single Bond fan's tier list, and that's who my first Bond was. And that, for me, that was Roger Moore. My dad grew up watching Roger Moore, so I grew up watching Roger Moore as a cause of that. He wasn't a big Daniel Craig fan, and because of that, I'm not a big Daniel Craig fan necessarily. I have seen both Skyfall and Spectre in theaters. I have not seen No Time to Die. I have not seen Casino Royale. I have seen Quantum of Solace, but I don't remember it. So, do take that into mind. I'm just going to change these tiers before we get going. I'm going to put the bottom tier as enjoyable, because there's not a single movie I don't enjoy out of the James Bond movies, and I'm going to say this is entertaining. Well, that's the same as enjoyable probably, and I'll think, can I delete this tier? Delete. Yeah, I think I only need 4 tiers actually. But the enjoyable movies are ones that I'd see for fun every now and then. I don't think they're the best movies. And perfect are the movies I see myself going back to many times. Entertaining movies are just movies I really enjoyed, and I would probably see them again, but they're not my favorites. Perfect are my favorites. Entertaining are the higher tier, and enjoyable are just, I guess, the bottom tier. I think I'll add a tier below actually. Oh wait, no. I'm quite new to this. Add row below, and I guess these are the bad movies, but I'd say they're still enjoyable. So maybe these are just good. I don't know how to rank these, but I think I'll take it in. Well, it'll actually be quite interesting taking it in this order, because otherwise you'll all know the order anyway. Well, you'll be able to see the order here, but otherwise it would just be actor by actor, but now it's completely random, basically. So I'll begin with Skyfall, and I have seen this movie, but it was really long ago. I know it's ranked as probably the best Bond movie ever. I just haven't seen it since it came out, and because of that I don't feel like saying anything about it. And I would actually say that for all of Daniel Craig's films, I have not seen them recently enough. Like I said, my dad doesn't like Daniel Craig. I recently bought every single one on DVD. I just haven't watched them yet, and me and my friend haven't caught up to that point, so I won't comment on these yet. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video, I don't know. Okay, so the first one I'm actually going to rank For Your Eyes Only, and I watched this with my friend quite recently. I watched it quite a long time ago with my parents, but recently I watched it with my friend, and I would say this is an entertaining movie. I wouldn't say it's... Wait, maybe I should do this actually. There we go. Entertaining, and then good, and then perfect. It's an entertaining movie. I wouldn't say it's a great movie, because the villains in this movie are probably one of the... the villain is probably one of the weakest villains. He's not very imposing. You only find out who the real villain is quite late in the movie. I would say the main henchman, Emilio Locke, I think. Emilio Locke? I don't remember. He might not even be the main henchman, because that might be the blonde skiing dude. But Locke, I think, is a great henchman. He's very intimidating, and he has a nice death scene, better than the actual villain in this movie. But it's an entertaining movie, and it's nice. I would say it's more grounded than the rest of Roger Moore's movies, which some people like, some people don't. I think it's an entertaining movie. I don't think it's the best because it lacks a few elements. But I think the Bond girl is... I think the Bond girl is one of the best, actually. She can stand her own in a fight. She's not weak. She doesn't say, "Oh, James," all the time. And I think that for me is an upside. And a downside with the movie, I'll rank later on that a lot of people like that I just don't like. But anyway, I think this is an entertaining movie. I like it. I like the Bond girl. I think it's nice seeing a more grounded movie, and it's a bit more personal for Bond in this movie. Well, Roger Moore in general, seeing both the Countess and Luigi Ferrara both killed. Both times he seems to care, actually, more than usual when his allies do get killed. GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan's first movie. I know this is also one of the fan favorites. For me, I just don't enjoy it as much as Brosnan's other movies. Honestly, I think I know it's usually ranked as his best. I think it's maybe not his worst, but it's for me probably the least entertaining of his movies. He's very cool in the beginning of the movie. I think it's a movie that for me gets less and less effective later on. I don't like the antenna ending. Seeing Sean Bean as Agent 006, though, I do really enjoy. I think this movie has one of the best villains. I just need to see, are we recording? Yes, we are. It has one of the best villains, probably, of any James Bond movies. That's really distracting. The henchmen... Are there any henchmen? Yeah, it's this... oh, yeah, there are henchmen. It's that... I can never remember the Russian general's name. And then you have the girl that strangles people with her thighs. But I think the villains are actually quite good. I'm not saying they're forgettable, I just forgot about them. I think the villains are the strong suit of this movie. I just think the rest of the movie isn't that great. The Q scene is good. The Bond girl, I know she's quite liked. She's not one of my favorites. She's probably one of my less liked Bond girls even. So for me, it's a good movie. It's not one of my favorites. Then you have You Only Live Twice. This is a movie people either love or think is just okay. I don't see people usually hate on this movie. I prefer it over GoldenEye. For me, this You Only Live Twice is quite a forgettable movie. And for me, the weakest part of this movie is actually the villain. I don't like seeing Blofeld in person. He was a lot more intimidating for me when he was this voice stroking a cat that was hidden because he was so powerful. We didn't get to see him, and when we do see him, he's quite a short, old, bald guy. No offense to Donald Pleasence, of course. I haven't seen any of his movies, but I respect the actor, of course. And it's nothing against him as an actor. I just don't think Blofeld as a character in any of the movies is really as imposing as he should be for being Bond's arch nemesis. So that's probably the weakest part of this movie for me, the villain. I also don't think the Bond girl is really good. I don't remember the Bond girl, but she gets killed. She works with Tiger Tanaka. I don't remember. She gets killed in the middle of the movie. I don't remember her name. I wish she was the Bond girl through the entire movie, because she was a great character. Aki, I think her name was. And I think she was a much better character than the actual Bond girl that we got. And this hijacking spaceships, it's not the first time or the last time we've really seen that plot. So, but the volcano setting, and it's a beautiful movie to look at as well. I must say, it's filmed a lot better, I'd say, than most of Connery's movies. Not to say any of them look bad, and I think they're among the more beautiful movies, actually. But it's a very beautiful movie to look at, especially once they get to that Japanese island. About, I guess, the middle section or a bit later into the movie. Then we have From Russia with Love, and I know this is I don't like the bad here. I didn't enjoy. And this is a movie that people either rank at the bottom or the top of the ranking. I'm going to say I didn't enjoy From Russia with Love, and I know that's going to get me a lot of hate. I get it. I'm too stupid to understand it or something, but I just find this movie very, very slow. The strong parts of this movie for me are Karim Bey. I think he's he's a really nice sidekick and probably Bond's possibly best sidekick ever. He's a really nice guy, and the story behind the actor himself is quite tragic. I think the locations are great. The villains in this movie are also really good. Red Grant, mainly, of course. I think he's like almost like an equal to Bond, but he's on the other side, of course. And I find Robert Shaw to be a really great actor in general, very underrated, and I think he had a good role in this movie. I think Sean Connery himself was really good in this movie as well. There's two things I don't like about this movie. The plot, first of all, I just find it boring. They're just stealing like a decoding machine. I get it, this is more of a spy movie. This is probably the most grounded plot, maybe alongside For Your Eyes Only, where both of the times. Then in For Your Eyes Only, they're stealing like this tracking thing, I guess, that could take control of all of Britain's submarines or something. And from Russia with Love, they're just stealing a decoder. But both of these plots were very grounded. I just didn't enjoy the plotting from Russia with Love. It just felt quite a bit meaningless to me. I guess maybe because it's too grounded and too spy-esque. I found it very slow, and I did not like the Bond girl in this movie. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie, I just didn't enjoy it. I found it too slow for my taste, and my friend also agreed, much to his father's disliking, because it's his dad's, I think, probably one of his favorite movies. Just not for me, and probably not my parents or my friends either. Next one is Moonraker, and I think this is an entertaining movie. I wouldn't say it's a particularly really good movie. It's quite forgettable for me. I don't remember. I saw this movie just a few weeks ago, most recently, and I don't remember much from it. I remember Hugo Drax. I remember the end with the space station and Jaws. I just don't remember most of the movie. I'd say it's an entertaining movie, but it's also probably the most forgettable Bond movie. There's just nothing stand out in it. It's just a good Bond movie. The plot is like pretty crazy, and it has a hot Bond girl, and Roger Moore does like I don't know. It's an entertaining movie. It's a good Bond movie, but I wouldn't say it's a good movie, if you understand what I say. It's forgettable but entertaining. The Man with the Golden Gun, I'd actually say this is a good movie. Christopher Lee plays an amazing villain in this movie. Probably also one of my favorite movies in the entire series. I think Roger Moore has some pretty serious moments in this movie, actually, which I do enjoy when he plays it more serious. And for example, when he's in that weapons, I don't know what you call it, distributor, the guy that makes the golden bullets for Scaramanga, at least. That's a pretty serious scene, and I think it's well done. And I know it gets a lot of hate for being quite slow, and the plot doesn't really go anywhere, but I think it's very entertaining. The villain is good, and I just think that the characters in the movie carry the plot, or lack thereof. But that's all I really have to say. It's an iconic movie. I think it's a good James Bond movie. And next one is The Living Daylights, and I have to say this is the first perfect movie. I just like everything about this movie. I love Dalton. I love the soundtrack, the theme by Aha. I think like all Bond's movies actually, I think, have a pretty good song, but I really like The Living Daylights. I think the fashion, Bond wears pretty nice clothing in this one, especially compared to License to Kill. I think the Bond girl Cara is one of the best, and I think she's one of the Bond girls that I could see Bond falling in love and settling down with, even more, I think, than Teresa Bond, probably. If this girl was like one Bond fell in love with, I wouldn't question it. I just think that, yeah, she's a good Bond girl, and I think Dalton does a good delivery. It's a dark movie, but it has a nice balance, nice gadgets. It's just a great all-around movie, and I'd say it's one of the best in the series, and I think it's actually Dalton's best movie. out of the two he made. Then we have another one I really like, and this is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby's only movie. And I know George Lazenby gets a lot of hate for his acting. I don't think it's as bad as people say. I would say he's the worst Bond actor, but I'm not saying he's bad. He's just the worst, because all Bond actors are good. And I think the plot for this movie is quite good. It feels very personal. The plot itself is quite like grand, but the movie itself is very personal. I think it has a good soundtrack. It has probably my favorite Bond girl in Teresa, Tracy Bond, and I think the Peter Hunt, the director. I think the movie is very beautiful to look at as well. The only thing I don't like is probably that some sections feel sped up, and that the fights feel like there's too quick cuts in them. But otherwise, I'd say this is a really, really good Bond movie, like a must-watch even, and an incredibly important Bond movie, since it's up until, I think, No Time to Die, the only time Bond got married, and up until Casino Royale, the first time Bond really fell in love with someone. And I know Casino Royale is, of course, chronologically earlier than On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Right, next one is The Spy Who Loved Me, and I'm on the fence of making this a perfect one or a good one. I'm going to put it at the top of good, because this is probably, along with maybe Goldfinger and GoldenEye, and maybe Casino Royale and Skyfall, like the movies people think of when you say Bond, right? This movie has everything. It's a good soundtrack, it's nice cinematography, the Bond girl isn't too bad either. Bond gets a lot of nice one-liners, there's a lot of actions and explosions, it's a crazy bad guy, the villain and everything. But it's not my favorite, honestly. I think that Barbara Bach, the actress for Anya Masova, I think her name is, gets too much hate for her acting. I don't think the Bond girl is very good, because she feels like she's built up to be this equal to Bond, but it doesn't have the payoff, because she eventually becomes useless anyway. But I think that sorry, I just had to check if I was recording. Where was I? Yeah, I think her acting is good. Her facial acting is really good. I just think that she struggles with the pronunciation and how she expresses herself in terms of words, and how she speaks. Her facial acting is great. You can see the emotion on her face. If you would watch this movie without sound, she would probably be one of the best acted Bond girls. She just struggles speaking. Her acting is not as wooden as people say, and I encourage people to like watch some clips and scenes from the movie or the entire movie without sound, just to see, like, she's not a bad actress. I think she doesn't get enough credit. But I think maybe, I'm not sure what I dislike about this movie actually, because it's a really good movie. Maybe it just feels too popular, or too This Is Bond. I'm not sure. It's just never been my favorite of Bond movies, or favorite from Roger Moore even. So this one is License to Kill, and this used to be one of my favorites. I'm going to place this in good. I think it's a unique plot and a very entertaining one. I just think with this movie, the villain is great, Dalton is great, the plot is great. What I think this movie suffers from, it's not the best movie to look at visually, and for me the visuals are quite important, and I don't think the soundtrack is very good either. But really, I don't think the fashion is there for me. Fashion is a big part of Bond, seeing the suits that Bond wears in like every new scene or every new location and everything, and the fashion just isn't there. I get it, he's out for revenge, he looks rough the entire movie, but that's just not for me, I suppose. And like I said, the soundtrack, I can't really remember the soundtrack at all. but otherwise, I think it's a really good movie. It's just not very good to look at or really listen to. But I think it's, in terms of plot and villains and general acting, it's one of the best, and Q plays a huge part in this movie as well. So The World Is Not Enough, I would say it's probably at the top of good, maybe even perfect, I would say. I think this is probably my favorite movie from Pierce Brosnan. Um, it's interesting seeing a female villain, and unless, yeah, you might be able to see it coming, but for some people it's not as obvious. I think the theme song and the soundtrack is quite good in this movie as well. Um, I think Pierce Brosnan, has a lot more opportunities to show his acting in this movie compared to other movies in the series, which I also really enjoy. So it has that as well. I think it's a good Bond movie. I think it's even underrated, especially compared to Brosnan's other movies. I think this is probably his best, but people don't really give it that credit. Um, but that's what I think, at least. Next one is Thunderball, and I would say this is also a perfect movie. It has the locations, it has maybe not the soundtrack, but it's a beautiful movie. I like Emilio Largo. I think he's a good villain. And I like Domino as well. Also has a part to play in the plot. She's not also a helpless Bond girl. Well, she kind of is, but she does get to kill the villain in the end, which I do really enjoy. It's not often that happens in these movies, so she gets some personal satisfaction from that. I don't know. I just really like the vibe of this movie. I think for me, it's like the ultimate Sean Connery movie. I think it's his most enjoyable and like best movie, I'd say. The fashion is good. Everything is just good. The gadgets are fine as well. The kills are nice. The one-liners are nice. The villain lair. I just think it's a good movie. And then we have Doctor No, which I would say, I might even say it's perfect. I think it's a pretty good movie. Maybe just good. I don't know, but I think it's very enjoyable. I think the villain is probably the weak part of this movie, since he's introduced so late and gets killed off really soon, and also like it feels a bit dated in some aspects. The green screen while Sean Connery's driving is awful, but of course it's 1962. The movie turns 60 this year, so it's an old movie at this point anyway. So, but for being an old movie, it's a great movie, and for being the first Bond movie, it's also a great Bond movie. So that's why I'm placing it in perfect, and it's thanks to the success of this movie that all the other movies probably even happened. And I like the Bond girl, I like Quarrel, I like Felix Leiter in this movie, I like Sean Connery in this movie. I think it has a vibe to it. I don't really know how to explain it. It just feels, I don't know, it feels kind of small in a sense, but like the plot is big, but it feels small, like seeing Quarrel and Honey and Bond on that island, for example. I don't know, I just get good vibes from this movie. I don't know, I like this movie. That's all I really can say. And it's my ranking, of course, so you're free to disagree. I think most of you will, but I think this is a perfect movie. And I would say Octopus is also a perfect movie. I think this movie is great. It might be my favorite Bond movie, and I like I don't know where to start. It's pretty beautiful to look at in most cases. There's some shots that aren't really great. It's not like Thunderball. There are a lot more beautiful movies than Octopussy, but wouldn't say it's ugly to look at. It has great stunt work. The plot is probably the weak point of this movie, but I still find the plot like it's a good plot. I'd say some things like the Fabergé eggs don't really do much. The pre-title sequence is great. I think All Time High is a good song. The Bond girl is great. She feels similar to Bond in age, or at least I don't think Maud Adams is quite close to Roger Moore in age, but she looks closer to him in age than any other of his Bond girls, and I think this is also one of the Bond girls that I could possibly see Bond settling down with, even. Might be because of the music, though. The soundtrack in this movie is great, probably at least top 3 soundtracks in all of Bond, I would say. And I think the villains are quite good too. The sidekicks, Q gets a lot of screen time in this movie, and he gets some really good sections. Even better, I know License to Kill is often the movie people bring up when they say that Bond has a big part, that Q has a big part to play in the movie. I'd say he has a bigger part to play in this movie, and I'd say he gets to shine more in this movie. VJ, I think, is a great character too. His death is really tragic. The locations, even though the movie might not be the most beautiful movie to look at out of the Bond movies, the locations are great in this movie. And I think the highlight of this movie really is Roger Moore. I know people don't give him a lot of credit because he does like this more comedic Bond, but he really gets to get serious in this movie. Like almost from not really from beginning to end, but especially during the train sequences near the end, starting from when he speaks to General Orlov to when he shoots that Russian guy blank in the face, and has to kill all these Russian soldiers, and when he gets revenge for 009 by killing the last of the twins, and also when he has to stop the bomb and people are not taking him serious when he comes dressed as a clown. And you can really, you hear the desperation in his voice when he says, "Let me go, damn it, there's a bomb in there." You can really hear the emotion in his voice. I think this is a really underrated performance by Moore, and I know Connery and Craig and Dalton often get the credit for being the best Bond actors, and maybe that's true, but I do think Moore is underrated when it comes to his acting. He just doesn't get the chances to show it that well. But I think he does in Octopus, and I think that's why I think it's such a good movie. Part of it is that, at least, that Bond gets to show some emotion and desperation in this movie, and he's not laughing at everything and just shrugging everything off. So I think I'd say it's Moore's best movie. Then we have Diamonds Are Forever, which I'd say is entertaining, probably at the top of entertaining. I'd say it's not a good movie. I'd say it's Sean Connery's objectively worst movie, but I would say it's it's one of his more entertaining movies to me, actually. I think there's a lot of nice one-liners. I don't like the Bond girl, however, and I don't really like the plot. I just enjoy the movie. I think it's one of those movies that it's objectively probably quite bad, but I think it's very entertaining for some reason, and it looks like Sean Connery has more fun in this movie than in any of the other movies that he's done. At least since Thunderball, which I guess that only makes it You Only Live Twice, but I think it's an entertaining movie. It's not one that you should put on if you expect a good Bond movie. It's just one of those that if you want something to watch, you can turn on Diamonds Are Forever and you'll have a good time, I'd say. Tomorrow Never Dies, I'd say, is also one of Brosnan's better movies. I think Jonathan Pryce is probably what people dislike most about this movie, but it's probably what I like most. I think the villain he plays is quite, I don't know, I just like him. I like the idea of what his character is built on and what he does. I think the plot in this movie is great. It gets some personal moments from Bond, especially when Paris Carver just gets killed, and he gets to when he kills I can't remember the German doctor's name, but when the doctor says, "I'm just a professional doing a job," and Bond says, "So am I think that's a great moment. I think the Bond girl is quite forgettable. I don't think she works as a Bond girl, because I don't think there's really good chemistry between the actors in this movie. But I think she's a very capable fighter and probably capable of holding her own against Bond. Maybe I think she's a bit like Anya Masova in The Spy Who Loved Me. I think these movies in general are actually quite similar, I would say. You could at least draw a lot of similarities between them. And she gets captured near the end, sadly. So I guess that's the downside of her character. There's not really a lot of Bond girls that are very tough and can stand their own. And she can, but she gets captured. So I don't know. She's not as good as some people claim her to be, but I think this is a good movie in general. Probably I'd say underrated even. View to a Kill is also a movie I find underrated. I think it's a good movie. People often bring up Bond's age and Stacey Sutton as two flaws, and I guess so. It would probably have been good to maybe cast another Bond here. For me, the age doesn't get to me that much. I'm fine with it actually, especially since I don't know. I just don't mind Bond's age too much. Maybe they needed him to do too many stunts in which the stuntmen are too noticeable. If they wouldn't have had Bond do so many like dangerous things in this movie, it might have been less noticeable. But I think the villain is great. I think the soundtrack is also one of the best. Also, I think a top 3 soundtrack in all of Bond. I don't think the Bond girl is very good either, but I think it's, when you combine everything, I think it's a good movie, but maybe the elements alone aren't really great. I don't know why. But I think it's an entertaining movie, and I actually think it's a good movie. I enjoyed watching it, at least. Next one is Goldfinger, and I would say this is a good movie as well. I would place it next to The Spy Who Loved Me, because I think this is like one of the quintessential Bond movies, but because of that I find it to be a bit, I guess, overrated. I think maybe it's too Bond, or maybe it's too grounded, I don't know. Because it's also one of these movies, I don't find any flaws in it. Just like in The Spy Who Loved Me, or maybe even GoldenEye. I think the villain is good, Sean Connery is good. The henchman is fine as well. It's not the best henchman, but he's iconic. But I just don't find the movie itself to... I don't find it to be the best Bond movie, which many people claim it to be. One thing I can say, though, is it's the best Bond movie from a fashion sense. I think Sean Connery and his suits in this movie are on point. Bond has never looked as sharp as he does in this movie, and that I must give the movie credit for. So if you really like suits, I think this is a must-watch. Next one is Live and Let Die, sorry. I'd say this one is at the top of entertaining. I don't think this is great. It's a movie that has gone worse over time for me, instead of growing on me like many movies do. I think the soundtrack is great. I think Moore is great. I think Kananga is great. I just find the plot itself a bit boring and stale. So I feel like the movie doesn't really go anywhere. But when you get to see the villain, or when you get to see Bond, or hear the soundtrack, I think is a really good movie. I just think when it feels like it goes nowhere, right? The plot is, I guess, a bit grounded, but at the same time, for being a grounded movie, it never really goes anywhere. I think the villain has a bad death scene, but I'm not bored when I watch this movie. It's just that objectively, I don't think it goes anywhere, really. So, and we have Die Another Day, which I would say it's a good movie, but people would hate me too much. I'm putting it in entertaining. I thought it was a really entertaining movie. I can't really say anything else. The pre-title sequence, I think, is filmed very, very effectively. The villains aren't that great. The special effects is probably the worst part, because it starts leaning a lot on CGI, and the older movies could get away with it, but this movie came out in 2002, so there's really no excuse for this movie being, like, for example, the surfing sequence, for them looking as bad as they do. So that's, I guess that's probably my main gripes with the movie. I don't like Jinx that much either, as a Bond girl, but I think it's an entertaining movie, and I didn't find it boring or stale or anything while watching it. So I'd say it's underrated, but it gets too much hate. But I wouldn't say it's a good movie. It's just entertaining. And there you have it. This is my ranking. So I think almost every actor. I don't think Brosnan got a movie actually in the perfect tier, but every other actor I think got one in the perfect tier. So I feel a bit bad for Brosnan. Nothing against him, because all of his movies except for Die Another Day ended up quite high on the list. It's just that I don't think any of his movies are standouts. I just think his movies are good. I just don't find them to be for him to have like any of the best movies. I just think he has good movies. But it's most tiers. These bottom tiers here didn't get that many. Of course, I didn't enjoy From Russia with Love. Is the only one I found myself being bored while watching, and that's why that one goes in that tier. And these one, of course, I haven't seen. So this tier could basically, like, you could delete this tier and it wouldn't really make a difference. But there you have it. This is my tier list. Feel free to share yours in the comments. You don't have to make it a tier list, of course. You could just say them in the order that you prefer them. I've struggled ranking in the exact order, and that's why I like tier lists, because then I can just do it. Like, I like these movies around as much. I find it less difficult with tier lists compared to actual ranking from worst to best. So, but this is my tier list. Feel free to share yours in the comments, and I'll see you guys in my next video.